Welcome, welcome, welcome. You're listening to the Ask Brien Radio Show on KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. Well, as everybody knows, our show is over 7.5 years old. So we've been doing this for quite a while. It's a business show, and we try to either A, teach people something about business, which is probably more along the lines of what we're going to be doing today, and at the same time, we try to teach somebody how they went from zero to scale to become a really successful company, so we can learn their story. That's a cue to what's going on today. Their story of how they made it, so that maybe people can follow that story, follow that line, and become successful. But the name of our show is called Ask Brien, AskBrien, and since my name is not Brian, everybody always asks us why Brian is spelled with an E. And we do have, yes we do, the resident expert. Gonna clap.
If I didn't know better, I would think you called me the president and the expert.
I was looking for a name of our resident expert.
Traci,
Well,
Traci,
yeah,
She needs
Traci,
her
Traci,
proper
Traci.
name, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I haven't been around here for a while, but whatever. Hi, I'm Traci, in case you were just now getting to know me, Peter.
What's your name?
Oh, whatever. I can see how it's going to go today. I've already
Why
seen
should
how
it
it's going to go.
Why should this day be different than any other show?
True.
Because I'm not even going to go there. I am going to start by acknowledging and celebrating that our amazing engineer is back in the studio today from a wonderful vacation.
Thank you. I'm refreshed and ready to deal with Peter. Yes.
Well,
Thank you.
I don't know if you're ready to deal with
I'm
Peter,
refreshed
but
and ready for
you are
some
back in the studio.
extra-
I'll give you that.
Yes. Okay.
I'm
Well,
trying to
all I have to say about it is I'm excited to have more estrogen in the studio
That's
with
true.
me today.
That's
so
true.
Thank you very much
Yes.
for hanging me out to dry last week, but I do understand you.
I know. I was thinking about you, though. You did great.
Well, thank you. And it is all about the E's here on the Ask Brien Radio Show. And one of the biggest E's that we always are thrilled to talk about is our experts. And today, of course, is no different. We have a really, really fun and dynamic expert in the studio today. Can't wait to dig into that interview. But first, we have to really define what is an expert. So an expert, by traditional definition, if you will, is someone who has invested a mere 10,000 hours into their business category or niche. But everybody who is an entrepreneur knows that it's well over 10,000 hours spent when you're starting up a business. And that formula, mathematically speaking, is based on 40 hours a week, roughly 52 weeks a year over the course of 5 years. But once again, we're all in the entrepreneur club around here, and we know that that is way overrated, that you spend more than 40 hours a week starting up a business. And so you can shortcut that learning curve down to about 3 years versus 5. But enough with the math. What we're here to do is shortcut your learning curve, and that's with our experts and the education that we bring to you while trying to entertain you at the same time. I know for sure we meet the education goal. The other, we'll leave that up to you. And if you are feeling sorry for me at this point because of all the drama I deal with my co-host, then you must really have a lot of empathy.
Why, yes, Traci, I do. Thank you for pointing that out.
And I'm so glad that you're not long-winded.
She's not. She's
never
educated.
been accused of that before. and our guests can even attest to that too, which is I'll really be ganged up when it comes to that. But you know, we're exceptional here when it comes to our energy and our enthusiasm. And of course, Peter, you're
excited.
And our eardrums. So I think we've done a very thorough job of exploring the E's. And if you want to just, tee me up for my favorite one, I think we should bring on our fantastic guest.
Well, Trace, I'll give you that because we are approaching the time where we do need to interview somebody. But we all know that you loved the main character in that movie, Grease, and we all know what they all said in that movie, that Grease Lightning was what?
Electrifying, and so are we. Man, we got 3 rounds of applause on this episode so far. We're doing good.
I'm a little button happy today, yeah. I'll chill, don't worry.
It's because she had that vacation, so now she's all raring to go.
So I had the day off, the week off. I got to catch up.
Usually when you have a day off, you work harder than when you're working.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we have a great guest today, Mr. Pat Howell. Are you there?
I am here.
Well,
hello and welcome.
You passed the first test because you survived. Half the people just leave. All right, so good. We still have you around. So before we get into what you're currently doing and what you've been doing for the last few years, I want to get a little brief background, a brief summary of your business history before you got into what your current business is. So
sure. Yeah, I have always been in the advertising, branding, marketing world. I've been there almost nearly 40 years now, and of that time, I spent 20 of those years running my own ad agency in Phoenix, Arizona, called Park Co. And about halfway through the tenure of running that firm, I realized as the internet came on, full force in the early 2000s, e-commerce and social media, that we needed to change our approach to communication, sales, marketing, and branding, because leading up to that, when we were handling traditional accounts, it was about, our clients own the influence of mass media, TV, radio, print, outdoor, direct mail, that sort of thing. And with the internet, the masses, as we all know, have become the media, and they own your story, and they're happy to share it with the world and with all of its warts and bruises and everything in between. And so when looking for an answer is, how do you hack through this noise in the world out there with your brand and really connect with people on an authentic human level through the digital world we all live in? And that's when I found storytelling and started really studying it. Traci, you had mentioned 10,000 hours. I think I probably have 40,000 plus hours in really understanding how stories work with us to be able to connect with that fellow Homo sapien, either online, on the phone, in your email, or sitting across from them. And so that's what I do today, is I consult, teach, coach, and speak on the power of story to purpose-driven brands around the world.
Well, I'm not a Homo sapien. I'm more of a Neanderthal. But having said that,
either way, you're still a storytelling ape when it comes right down to it.
So first, I want to start out. That's quite an accomplishment that you have so far, 40 years. But the first question, people want to even understand what storytelling is. Not like, okay, I'm going to write a book, whatever. I mean, first, let's get into what exactly is storytelling. Then we're going to go through some examples and how
mm-hmm.
what would be a good elements to have a good storytelling. But what is storytelling? I mean, it's like, I'm going to talk about the 3 bears and Goldilocks, or what?
Well, that's a story, as is the Nike Just Do It. That's a story, as is, anyone running for the president. All they do is tell stories. So what is a story? A story, if you break it down to its fundamental building blocks, is going to sound so banal. You might just go, yeah, well, duh. It's a message about a moment in time when something has changed that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. All right? So let's just hold that for a second. Now, there are lots of different storytelling frameworks, from, the 17 steps of the hero's journey that Joseph Campbell identified, that's been around since the very beginning of recorded story. I mean, Gilgamesh was written and carved out of cuneiform tablets, follows the hero's journey template. Then you've got the 15 Beats to Story by Blake Snyder. You've got Pixar's 8 storytelling. There's all these different frameworks, but they all follow three basic principles, and we call those the three forces of story, of agreement, contradiction, consequence. And the best way to sum it up is famous American writer Kurt Vonnegut. He's got a great little video on YouTube that says, story is about a man gets in a hole, a man gets out of a hole. Now, it needn't be about a man, and it needn't be about a hole, but everybody loves that story. And so that's the basic definition of a story. In business, we tend to speak in non-narrative, meaning and we do this, and we have that, and it's going to help you here, and then this, and it's boring, especially in the business-to-business world. I call it the boring-to-bored world, because most people don't effectively know how to use narrative structure of setup, problem, resolution, or agreement, contradiction, consequence. And that's what we base all of our storytelling training on.
So one thing I didn't see you mention when I think of a story is characters. Like sometimes people say, I'm a character. So what do you mean by characters? No characters. What's going on?
Well, certainly. I mean, that's now you're going to start building on the chassis, that template, that framework of the and, but, therefore. And you certainly want to introduce a character into your story. It could be, you might be the central character, or you might be talking about a customer and like a customer testimonial, or you might just be sharing a story about someone you've heard about. But when you are sharing that story, you want to talk about it or share it from your audience's point of view. What's in it for them? If you're just telling a story to, boost your ego or to fill some time or whatever, it's probably not going to land right unless you really understand your audience and you tell it from their point of view so that they can connect with it.
So you mentioned earlier Nike. You've mentioned a couple other things here. What are the most important pieces to have in a good story to make sure that that story can resonate down the road and be successful?
So let's start with conflict. Now, you had mentioned you have to have a character, and the character obviously comes along with a story, because if there's no character, you really don't have a story. Something has to happen to somebody. But you got to have conflict. As they say, man gets in a hole, man gets out. It needn't be about a hole, but there's got to be change afoot and conflict. Otherwise, it's not very interesting. There's these 5 primal elements to story that is kind of an expanded and but therefore framework, which we could talk about the ABT in a minute if you like. But some of the best ways, if you're trying to share a little anecdotal story in under a minute, start with a time stamp. When did this moment happen in time? What you're doing is you're tweaking the limbic problem-solving brain that says, oh, something must have happened. I better pay attention to, so I will know what to do in case it ever happens to me. Then you want a location stamp. Where did this happen? Because now that you got the limbic brain's attention, you want to light up the theater of the mind so people could picture it, feel it, be there. What season was it in? What was it like outside? Where did it go down? Then you introduce your central character that they can relate to. So that's your setup. That's, getting them, and what this character wants in the world. Now you introduce the conflict to the whole. They tried to do this, but then this blew up around them, and they thought this was going to work, and then that didn't work at all. And surprisingly enough, they found this answer to the problem, which then leads to your aha moment, or the moral of the story, if you would, or your business point, since this is a business show, is what, by telling that story, how can you illustrate the impact you help that person make in the world through whatever offering you might have. So I call those the 5 primal elements of story: time stamp, location stamp, central character, action with a surprise outcome that leads to an aha moment, which is your business point.
And this is what you need in every example. So let's go over something that I consider to be successful. Maybe others don't. So let's go over, what's that girl on the Progressive commercial, or Jake from State Farm? They're all characters, right? But what makes those type of branding stories so successful? You want to pick one?
Well, I mean, they're always solving for that one problem, right? They want security. You're gonna Jake from State Farm. You're gonna buy State Farm to secure your stuff or to have confidence in that security. So they're all basically selling against the same premise, and they're just trying to do it in interesting, creative ways. I mean, I think the insurance business between Geico and those out there, Flo and that bit, have done a really interesting job with an otherwise mundane, commoditized business because they share funny characters with you that you can relate to. So, they definitely have conflict right at the center of it. What's the one with Mr. Chaos? Or I don't have his name quite right. You know the guy, though. He's always out. Mayhem. Well, they have Mayhem as a central character there that everyone can relate to. It's Murphy's Law. When something's going to go wrong, it's going to go wrong, and so you better have us there to help you protect that. So they're essentially playing against the same conflict and just doing it in different, interesting ways.
So what about Nike? Because Nike doesn't, I don't think there's a central character. It's a slogan, right? Just do it, right? And so everything.
Well, you become the central character in their story. That's their very slogan. You want to have an active, fun, healthy life, but you're sitting on your ass at home. So therefore, get off the couch and just do it. I mean, if you were to boil their brand down to an overarching narrative, and then when you look at any of their spots, one of my favorite spots of all times was this fat young man running down the road, and the whole spot for 60 seconds is him just running towards you, sweating. You hear the squeak of his sneakers, and you're looking at this young guy out there going, wow, he's putting it all in there. He's not moving very fast, but he's doing his thing. And the voiceover intones, and it's about greatness and that how we don't, greatness is not the Michael Jordans of the world and whatever, that we can find greatness in all of us if you just get up and have the courage to just do it. So they're really speaking to you and inviting you into that spot to look at this young man running and say, hey, if he can do it, I can do it.
Well, I think that's a very interesting concept, and I think that to me is why a Nike is successful, is you want to gear it towards the average person, right? When you gear something towards the average person and not towards that great person. I mean, a lot of companies do try to sell, Air Jordans, whatever, right? That's Michael Jordan's whatever sneaker, and you can become the next Michael Jordan. But I think that what it really comes down to is making the average person great, okay? And so that's how I feel about it. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That has been my premise since day one. If you want to read a really great book, read Phil Knight's memoir called Shoe Dog, and how, over the course of about a decade, Nike was constantly going broke, and he was bootstrapping everything to pull it together, pardon my pun, until it finally took off. And the whole thing was first, performance running with track shoes, but then he realized that, running is just good for everybody. It's good for your cardiovascular, your health, your mental mindset. It doesn't have to be reserved for just the Olympic runners coming out of the University of Oregon, which they were first focused on. And so that was his big shift to this idea of just do it, get out there. Now, Patagonia does another beautiful job of telling their story about don't buy our product unless you absolutely need it. Protect the environment out there, leave only footprints, take only pictures, that whole thing. But it's told from very much of their customer's point of view, what's in it for them. Usually business to consumer, B2C companies do a much better job of really understanding their customer and telling stories to them. The vast majority of my work is in the business-to-business world, because the biggest misunderstanding in the B2B world is businesses are not selling to businesses. Human beings are selling to human beings. And what happens in the business world with their storytelling is they focus on the brand. They focus on themselves. In fact, I just heard this the other day. Give you a timestamp. Last Thursday, location stamp, Toronto. The central character in this was a CEO in a CEO group. We'll just call him Jerry, for lack of a better term. And Jerry says to me, I don't think we really need all this storytelling stuff, talking from our customer's point of view, because we're the best in the market. And I think all we have to do is tell them we're the leader out there, and they're just naturally going to buy from us. Well, that couldn't be farther from the truth. People don't care about your business. They don't care about your offering. They don't care about you. They don't care about your brand. They only care about your outcomes. What can you do? How can you impact their life? What's in it for them? And that's where the B2B world really gets it wrong. And then, so you'd want to tell stories from your audience's point of view, and that's where we use this framework called the and, but, therefore, that I really think is like the DNA of storytelling. Those three, and they use the three forces of story, and here's how you build it. The and is your statement of agreement, or think of it as act one, or the setup for your story. And the idea is to get everybody on the same page with a shared vision. So you want to identify your audience, who you're speaking to, even use that pronoun shift of you, so you're speaking directly to them to invite them into the center of the story. Articulate what they want relative to your offering, and raise the stakes by saying, why is this important to you, right? So you get them nodding in agreement. Say, you understand me and you appreciate what I want and why that's important to me. Then you deliver the conflict. We call this the but statement of contradiction. But you're frustrated. Insert an emotion after that because of this major problem, right? So you identify your audience, what they want relative to your offering, and why is that important to them. But what's the emotion they're currently experiencing because of what major problem that you're going to solve for them? The therefore is the statement of consequence. Therefore, imagine when you get this by doing such and such with us. The brand always comes into the end. So now that may not be an active story as we know it, like taking you to a point in time when something happens. This is the setup to that anecdotal story. This is using the three forces of story that are pattern-seeking, problem-solving, decision-making, buying limbic brain adores. You are delivering meaning to it on a platter. It doesn't have to work for it, and you're telling it from your prospect or your audience's point of view. So you are making them the central character of the story. You are introducing the problem that they're currently fighting, and therefore showing them the way forward on how you're going to fix that for them. Beautiful 3-act structure: agreement, contradiction, consequence.
That was awesome. Thank you very much. Traci has a whole bunch of questions. We don't have a lot of time, so Traci, please go ahead.
Yeah, well, I want to start with, thank you so much for all of these great insights on storytelling and building a great story. And I would love to hear more about your story in terms of what was the big catalyst for you to start your business and grow from there?
Oh, it was the problem of running an ad agency for 10 years and realizing that our work was no longer as effective as it used to be, because we came out of the traditional advertising world and we were wrestling with this digital environment, the interwebs, trying to figure out, how does this all work? What does it mean? And there was so much more noise being blasted at us that I didn't have an answer for it. But I was lucky because we had our son Parker was going to film school at Chapman University in Orange County, a very, very, I guess it's rated the number 5th film school in the world now. And he was going there, started in 2006, graduated 2010. And while he was there, I said, Parker, send me your books and your recorded lectures when you're done with them, since I'm paying for them, because I want to know, what does Hollywood know about being a competitive storyteller in the most competitive storytelling market in the world. That's where I learned about these frameworks, such as the hero's journey and Blake Snyder. And it's when I looked at those from a brand marketing standpoint, I'm going, oh my God, there is the template to every customer journey any brand has ever experienced with their prospects. Why don't they teach this in the marketing and sales world? And so I took it and I boiled that down to my 10-step story cycle system, mapping what Hollywood knows about the hero's journey specifically to business, and then showing people how to do it. That was the first textbook I wrote. And I've had great success with that. We've grown brands by as much as 600% using the 10-step story cycle system. So that's what really got me going in the business of story. I had Arizona State University then called me and asked me if I'd do a master's program on it from an adjunct professor standpoint, which I did for 5 years. And I realized, Traci, that I no longer wanted to be an ad guy. I wanted to be a coach and a teacher. And so that's why that's all I do now. Through the business of story is consult, teach, coach, and speak on the power of storytelling in business.
I love that story. Literally, no pun intended. I think that's fantastic. I love how you shared that. We have about 60 seconds before we break. Can you just run us really quickly through your revenue model? So you mentioned books and consulting and coaching. What are your revenue streams?
Yeah, there's no money in books. It's a calling card. I make a little bit there. My revenue model is speaking and doing mastery courses both in person and virtually. I live in northern Arizona. I've got great Starlink Wi-Fi here, thanks to our internet connection, thanks to Elon. And so the majority of my work these days is doing virtual trainings around the world for companies. And that's my main revenue source.
Well, I think we're going to take a break. You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show on KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM, and our sponsor will be on now.
And we want to say thank you to LegalSteps.com. That's LegalStepz. That's spelled with a Z.com. LegalSteps.com is a great way to kind of get your footing if you want to start your own business. Certainly, I'm assuming that it's kind of scary. Where do you begin, right? So I took one of the courses. I'm not out here to start my own business, but I wanted to kind of see what it was about, so I knew what I was talking about. I took one of the courses. I took the what did I take, Peter? I can't remember. The incorporation one. And I guess under 2 hours, it was like an hour and 45 minutes. I was able to work from my own house at my own pace. I could pause it. I could rewind it. If I missed what was being said, I could back it up a little bit, take notes, which is really huge for me. So I like that it was really just kind of almost holding my hand through the entire process. They also offer, in addition to the course that I took, they offer registering a trademark, form an LLC. And when you are in the middle of these courses, like I said, it's an online course, you can see what your instructor is looking at. It's kind of like a picture-in-picture, a screen-in-screen, if you will. So I could literally see their screen and my screen, and I knew that, okay, yep, I answered that question the right way. I filled out the form properly, and I knew that I wasn't messing things up because, again, it can be scary. If you don't know where to begin, LegalSteps.com is where you need to begin. The courses are affordable. They're all under $150 each. You're not going to break the bank trying to get ahead here. And like I said, they kind of hold your hand. And if you can't do it, if you're stuck and you just kind of throw your hands in the air, they'll just do it for you. All of the courses are reviewed by an attorney, and those attorneys, by the way, have over 30 years experience, so you know that you're in great hands. Again, go to LegalSteps.com, LegalStepz.com.
Wow, that sounds great. Thanks, Jen.
You bet.
And we're listening to the Ask Brien radio show on KHTS 1220, 98.1 FM. We're very grateful to have a sponsor of Legal Steps. And now back to Traci and Mr. Howell.
So I really want to have this conversation around the content creator. So we've talked about the importance of having really good creative content, of building your story, sharing your story. And I think there's so much going on in the industry right now as a content creator. I know you're a podcaster and you're an author and speaker. So tell us a little bit about, first, like, how rapidly have you seen this industry change, and even in just the last couple of years, and where do you see it headed in terms of really being able to keep deep roots in the content creation space?
Okay. Yeah. And remind me too, Traci, at the end of this, as you were doing the read for Legal Steps, I wrote an ABT for it. So we can revisit that, and I'll show you how to use that in the promotion of Legal Steps.
Well, maybe we should just do that right now. I think let's just do it now. Let's make the magic happen.
And here's the thing. I'm going to play off your first question here too. So what has happened? We are getting overwhelmed with content. How many podcasts are out there and so forth? And, oh, by the way, we are getting bombarded by remarkably creative individuals with the funny memes out there and all this stuff. You know, it's like creativity and hilarity has been democratized, and it's really hard to stand out in that. My argument is how you stand out is through clarity. Clarity from here on moving forward for the foreseeable future is going to trump everything else if you are trying to get in between people's ears. Because if you are not crystal clear with them, they will blow you off and you got to move on. It takes you out of having to compete with the creativity because you're going to hack through that to get your point across. So legal steps, using an and, but, therefore. As you were just reading that, I came up with something to the effect of, and I'm speaking directly to your audience now, people that would be a customer of legal steps. As a courageous entrepreneur, you are starting your own business. And if you have the confidence that all of your legal needs are in place, then you can begin building your enterprise. But you're scared because you are not an attorney and you don't even know where to turn to get the right legal advice. Therefore, you can relax by taking your first step to Legal Steps, the one platform that enables you to blah, 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 blah. I don't know what the rest of their value proposition is, but I wanted to demonstrate how, all right, using those three forces of story of agreement, introducing you as a courageous entrepreneur. What is it you want? You want to have the confidence of building this robust enterprise by making sure all your legal needs are taken care of. But it's scary. You're scared because you're not an attorney. You don't know where to turn. Therefore, your first step so that you can relax in all this is the legal step. There is clarity. Now, to make it more creative, you could bring your own voice to it. You know, you could tweak it. I literally just wrote that as you were reading the promo spot, just to get my head wrapped around it. But then I could have some fun with how I tell it. But I want to make sure I've got agreement, contradiction, and consequence, because that's the technology or the algorithm that hacks through the remarkable noise that we all compete in.
Wow. Okay, Jen, good. I hope you were taking some really good notes over there.
I am, actually.
But could you feel the difference?
That was an amazing live workshop experience, and yes, totally can feel the difference. And I mean, I just feel like what a gift you just gave us in so quickly. You're actually really, really good at what you do. No surprise there.
40,000 hours, Traci.
and probably not even scraping the surface on that number, really, right?
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
Well, I definitely want to get into the industry shifts, and not that we don't have to go backwards so much now. We have about 60 seconds before the break. But what can content creators look to in terms of navigating AI and technology? And I mean, you can't replace what you just did there. What you just did there was natural, authentic, organic, and like nothing artificial about it. But it's just it's a scary landscape out there right now.
I think of an AI, artificial intelligence, switch that, artificial intern. I think of AI, I use it like I would if I was employing a bunch of interns to go out and do a bunch of research for me, and they're going to spend hours and hours and hours of doing that. Now I can use an artificial intern through AI to be able to find that research and bring it to the forefront in minutes versus days, weeks, and months. So that's the big power of it. And then if you want to write a first draft, maybe have AI do that for you, but then get in and make it uniquely your own and bring humanity to it. My argument is if you're sitting down across from someone and you are asked to tell a story, do you want to come off like Captain Kirk or Spock? Who do you think they want to listen to? They don't want to listen to and read Spock in AI and how robotic and mechanical it is. They want Captain Kirk, the emotion coming through. So people can use AI as that tool, that intern, if you will, but then make your communication your very own voice.
Yeah, well, I just really don't want this show to end today because we've had so much fun, and I want to do more workshopping. So we might have to have you back on another episode where we do just all workshopping the whole time, because I love the way your brain works. And I'm sure our audience also has thoroughly enjoyed how your brain works and likely wants to continue this conversation with you in some way. If they do, what would be the best way for people to get in touch with you and learn more, connect more, and be just like in your creative genius world?
Well, thank you for that. And I've enjoyed this as well. The best place is thebusinessofstory.com. Go there, hit my contact form, shoot me a note if you'd like to get acquainted or jump on a call or whatever. Also, if you would like to learn how to use the ABT in your world, go to businessofstory.com/ABT. And it will teach you the ABTs of storytelling and how you can do it. And then finally, listen to my show. Traci, you were so nice to be on the show this week with me on The Business of Story. You can find it on iTunes and Spotify and anywhere that you listen to the podcasts. And I've been doing mine for just over 8 years and was happy that HubSpot named me the #1 business storytelling podcast in the world. So if you'd like some more insights into story artists around the world and how to use them in your world, listen to my show, Business of Story.
Well, and it is truly a happy accident that my interview on your podcast was released this week as we're doing this show live. But I do appreciate the shameless plug, and I will take it. And speaking of shameless plug, if you have loved this episode and want to know even more information or dig in deeper into some of the resources that Park shared, please be sure to download and listen to the Ask Brien podcast. So it's all about podcasts today. So it is the Ask Brien, Brien podcast, and we're going to have all the resource links, Park's contact information, website, highlights from this episode, and all of our back catalog as well. And you can find the Ask Brien podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Peter?
So, Mr. Howell, I have a question for you. What was the most difficult story that you had to come up with for a client, and why?
The most difficult story I had to come up with for a client. Boy, no one's ever asked me that before. I've got to think about that.
That's my whole point here. I like to make people think.
I'm sorry, you broke up on me there.
I said as a lawyer, I like to make people think.
One of them, and I can't divulge the client, but I can tell you it's a multi-billion-dollar construction management firm that was doing an ERP, enterprise resource planning, $300 million project internally, and they screwed it up at the beginning of it. And they lost a lot of faith and confidence in their middle managers and employees and rank and file. And so they brought me in to reframe that story, to say, look, okay, yeah, we blew it, but we are going to move ahead. And what we did is we changed the perspective from that ERP transformation being about the company to that ER transformation being about their people. We are going through it, spending this money, going through the learning curves, the change curve, to make your career here more powerful, more inspirational, and to make you more money. That was probably the most difficult because I had to get them to stop telling the story from the brand's point of view and start telling it from their colleagues' point of view.
Well, that's actually very amazing that you did that. First of all, it was a very tough question I asked and had to really think it through, and yet you were able to positively created something really quickly. A question I also have, so some people say they want to hire your or go with your company. Is it just coaching or consulting, or you do the whole shebang? How does it work?
Yeah, I don't do the big branding work anymore. That takes an awful long time. What I really like to do is get clients that will come to me that, yes, either coaching or whatever, like the Home Depot, Walmart Canada, the U.S. Air Force. I mean, these big brands, I work with their leadership, their teams to teach them how to use these frameworks. But then other companies will come to me and they'll say, Park, we've got a really good brand. We just don't know how to talk about it. Or we've got a good brand story, we just got to get everybody on board so we're, telling the same story from our own personal point of view. So that's the kind of work that I really enjoy, is helping those brands tell their stories, not to reinvent their story, but to show them how to tell it better, and or work with internal companies and sales teams to show them how to be more persuasive, influential, compelling storytellers.
And consistent. I
Yes.
would think. So, unfortunately, we have to wrap it up. So, thank you very much for being on our show. As Traci said, we'd like to have you back on. Probably maybe we'll take a fictitious company. It doesn't have to be Legal Steps, but we'll take up a fictitious company and we can go through the whole process and we'll just create something. And that I think would be helpful to people to really learn. But you've been a great guest.
Oh, that'd be fun.
We'll do that. We'll figure that out.
And Peter, since you are a lawyer, we've got a series of books out on the ABTs, like a guide. It's called The Narrative Gym. Mine, I co-wrote with Dr. Randy Olson, The Narrative Gym for Business. But there's one written by Doug Passon called The Narrative Gym for Law. You ought to check it out. It'll blow you away.
I definitely will check it out. I'm going to contact you after the show. Thank you very much. You've been listening to the Ask Brien Radio Show, KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. Over and out. Till next Thursday.